Do you know it's about the third time I've actually sat in this car? Hi, so in today's video we're going to be putting the head of the engine back on the car. Before I'm going to do that, I'm going to clean the mating surfaces to make sure they're nice and free of debris, and just give them a bit of an inspection to make sure there's nothing amiss. Then I'm going to put the new head gasket back on there, head back on, put in the stretch bolts, torque them down in sequence, and then that should be the head all in good order. Then it's a case of rebuilding a few bits around the engine bay, putting the cam gears back on, the cam cover, things like that, and then it'll be on to do other things. I had started to make another video, and it was about that was supposed to be this video. That was about replacing this seal, the oil pump seal. Now I took all the bolts off, filmed it and everything, took all the bolts off, but the gear, the crankshaft gear, is actually seized on and I can't get that off, so that's keeping the oil pump on. I'm waiting for an internal bearing puller to arrive so I can take that off, or attempt to take that off, so that'll all be in the next video. And then it's kind of on to other things then, so I've got to drop the front subframe and renew some suspension components there, and give that a bit of a clean up and paint it with some sort of rust treatment, and then it should be a case of firing it up for the first time really since all this began, and then it'll be bodywork. So yeah. Right, so on with putting in the studs back into the head. Now when I took the exhaust manifold off, all but one of the studs came out. So these nuts were seized on to these studs. So as you undid them, it just took the studs straight out. So I've managed to free these nuts off by clamping this in a vise and using the high torque Milwaukee impact on its lowest setting to undo them, which it did perfectly. Now I'm putting them back in. I'm putting them in finger tight, and as one viewer suggested, I'm going to put two nuts on here tightened up against one another so that I can use the outside nut to torque down this stud. I've just put this one back in, put some Loctite on it, put two nuts on, torqued it down, and that's set to go okay. You can see where I tried to hold this stud with a pair of grips like this, and you just haven't got enough, well, I didn't have enough strength in my hand to grip it whilst undoing it, so the impact managed to get us off. So I'm going to put this one as far down as I dare, and then the second nut can go on top, just like that. Torque wrench to back the nut off. I've cleaned the head up with Scotch-Brite, and I've put a flat metal rule across it in various places, and acrossways and lengthways, and there is no perceivable gap whatsoever, so I'm quite pleased about that. So once they're back on, it'll be a case of putting the head back on the car. So I've had a go at cleaning around the engine block. There's a lot of oil around the seam of the head. I've tried to clean that up a little bit without taking the head gasket off, so you can see, as I see, what's underneath here. It's quite important to have it as clean as possible, so that when it's all put back together, I can see whether or not anything's leaking in the future. So this is a multi-layer gasket, and looking at the gasket I'm about to put on this, it does look like a very similar one, if not the same style, multi-layer. So this, I'm guessing, looks like it may have failed. It is discoloured more down here, and I've cleaned it up a bit so you can't see it as well, but it is discoloured more down here. So I'm guessing and there's a lot more oil here, so it may have failed here. We'll see. Now there are two dowels here, so they should stay in the block, I'm hoping. As I took the head off, one layer of this multi-layer gasket was on the underside of the head, so one layer of this has come off already. So it's not stuck on or anything like that, which is good. Put the head back on its two dowels, seated properly. There's a bit of a sequence we need to go through, so before I do anything I'm just going to clean the holes where the bolts go through, just so there's nothing going to get trapped. Okay, so I've compared the bolts with the bolts that I took out, and the same length, and they look pretty much the same. When you do put them in, it does say in the manual that you're supposed to oil underneath the head of the bolt and also oil the threads as well, so I've got some oil here. And when you put them in, don't drop them in because you could damage something further down. Place them in. I'm going to put them in finger tight first, and then I'll go around and then tighten them in sequence. It's tighten them in sequence to 20 Newton meters, and then it's tighten them in sequence again 180 degrees, and then once more in sequence another 180 degrees. I haven't put the strengthened oil rail on the bottom of this, so these are just the standard bolts, so we're not altering the torque or anything like that. So there we go. because it's a multi-layer gasket, I'm finding that unless there's a couple of thousandths of an inch play around the dowels where the new gasket sits, and if that isn't pretty much perfectly aligned, it is preventing some of the bolts from going through. Now I am just trying to manipulate the head a little bit, trying to get it all lined up so that they do go through. I'm not going to force anything. These dowels aren't moving at all, so they're not wriggling around or anything like that. It's not the gasket, it's me! So the bolts that aren't going through, you can see here, here and here. You can see here and here where the bolts are making contact with the gasket. They're too far over this way, which means I must have the head slightly off that dowel. So I'll try again. So I'm just making sure it's clean. We're having another go. That looks better. If you get a couple of lights about, you can see down the holes, and if the gasket is fouling or it's not quite lined up, you can see that. You'll certainly feel it when you come to put these bolts in, as I did. But take your time. See, they should just go in like that. That is better. So now they're all snugged up, I'm going to go around in sequence to 20 Newton meters. Now I have checked this torque wrench against another 2 torque wrenches, one that was my own, one that was a mate's, thanks Justin, and it's about bob on. So it doesn't have a very strong click, but I can feel it. So start in the middle, as I look at it on my right hand side, number 1, and then opposite that number 2, and then below that right hand side number 3, number 4, then above where you started, number 5, number 6, then at the bottom 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'll put a diagram up if I can and show the sequence. So I've done the centre 2 already, so it's the ones below now, 3 and 4. So that's them all torqued up to 20 Newton meters. Now I need to go around that same sequence again a further 2 times, but 180 degrees, so halfway round on each one each time, twice. I've got a piece of cardboard, cut a circle in it with a line straight down the middle, 180 degrees. I plan on putting that over the hole, over the bolt, and then putting a tie wrap around the shaft of the extension. Now just saying the manual, if you do over tighten any of those bolts, just to back it off 90 degrees, so long as you've not gone too far over the 180 degrees. But that's pretty much the head back on, so it's a case of putting on the cam gears, the timing belt and everything else that needs going on. Sorry about cutting that last clip short. My phone rang and then the camera died, so sorry about that. Before I wrap this video up, I just wanted to ask if there's any suggestions or ideas on what I could do with the car in terms of taking it places when it's roadworthy. So I plan on taking it to Wales, I plan on taking it to Scotland for a bit of a trip and stretch its legs, but is there anywhere else I can take it? Are there any club-related events that I could potentially take it to? Pride of Longbridge was one of them that I heard about, but there must be loads that I'm not aware of. So if you're aware of any, please leave a comment down below, and hopefully I'll get it there. Thanks very much.